The Neo OST League is undeniably Blue Lock's best arc. Not only it is the longest and the grandiest of them all, but more importantly, it is the arc with the highest level we've seen thus far. And there is in part due to the inclusion of the pros and the new Gen 11s. However, this high level could also be attributed to the introduction of ocular abilities, as now our players are not simply running randomly on the field, but instead they are using their eyes to capture the most information they could so they can have the best play. And I truly believe for most of these players, it was them acquiring new ocular ability that caused them to reach a new level. Take Baro for example. He went from a good striker in Blue Lock to one that is rivaling the new Gen 11 and one of the best players in the whole U20 category. And this is undeniably due to him learning about the Predator eyes. However, if we want to talk about ocular abilities, it is mandatory that we talk about the best of them all, which is Metavision. As you see, Metavision is the most potent and the most versatile ocular ability we've got introduced to in this arc. And without a doubt, every player who acquired this reached a new level, and so in today's video, we are going to rank every player that we've seen utilize this broken ocular ability. However, before we jump to the ranking, I have an announcement. You see, I actually opened the channel membership for those of you guys who feel generous to help me give you this content. You absolutely don't have to join in, but I would really appreciate it. However, with that out of the way, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Metavision users ranked. Coming up at number 10, we've got the only player who acquired Metavision all on his own. He got it without reacting to any other player. Of course, I'm talking about Reo Mikage. Now, despite him acquiring Metavision, the fact that he got it subconsciously means his Metavision is not as potent as the others, and as we have seen in the recent chapters, players like Otoya are easily capable of sneaking up behind him. Because simply Reo is not utilizing this ocular ability to its fullest, he's not utilizing it 100% of the times, and so his Metavision is always shackled by his mental state. However, this does not take away from Reo, as despite him not using it for its fullest, Reo still is one of the best players specifically due to Metavision. You see, in the Manshine City vs Bastard Munich game, he was the only player in addition to Kaiser and the two pros who reacted to Isagi destroying the whole team. He was the only player who saw the pass that is going towards Yuki, and he was the only player who reacted to the shot. A feat that not even Kaiser was able to see. In fact, it was because of Kaiser that Reo was able to see it. And as I said, the best showing for his Metavision is when he is playing with Nagi or Chigiri. You see, in Nagi's super goal, when he was challenged by Kaiser and Isagi, he clearly chose the latter as his first victim. However, Nagi's vision was met flawlessly by Reo through him analyzing the field, and he was able to give him the perfect pass that would allow him to destroy Isagi. And honestly, I believe that Reo's Metavision, when it is active, deserves to be on the 9th spot and not the last, and I will explain that in details when we reach the 9th spot. However, for now, just know that he is in the last place simply because he does not utilize it to the fullest because it is all subconscious. At number 9, however, we've got Niko Ikki. Now, the case with Niko is always curious. You see, he's always the worst among the best. Whenever we have a ranking of the best players, typically Niko is always at the last spot. He is always better than the average and the bad players, but he is always the last among the best players. And this is no different in the Metavision ranking. And as I said, the only reason he is not at the last place here is because Reo is unlocking his Metavision subconsciously. Whereas when he does, his Metavision is definitely better than Niko's, simply because the latter is limited in the way he uses it. You see, unlike other Metavision users where they take every information possible around them, Niko, because of his potent eagle eye, usually gets engulfed in the vision and starts focusing on the targets he set in mind. Unlike for example Sae, Isagi or Charles, who all play with open mind and react to every player in their surroundings. And for that reason I am placing Niko at the 9th spot. However, much like I said in Reo's part, just because Niko's vision is limited does not mean he is a bad player. In fact, in the U20 game, even when unlocking it subconsciously, he was able to meet Sae in the most optimal position twice. And then in the Ubers game, while he was not as potent on defense, his Metavision proved to be crucial on offense, where he has the very impressive feat to even reacting to Noah who came from behind him. And I understand the whole thing was a pattern from Snuffy, however the fact that Niko used his Metavision to see and react react to Noah is rather impressive, and honestly one of the few impressive feats to the U20 players against the pros. And this is exactly what I mean by the fact that just by acquiring this broken ocular ability, you are at a much higher level than the other players. But as I said, because it is limited, Niko is stuck at the 9th spot. Coming up at number 8, however, is Sae Itoshi. Now, when we look at it from a potential point of view, I'd say Sae would rank much higher than the 8th spot. However, from what we've seen in the U20 game, I really cannot place him higher, and let me explain. First of all, how do we know that Sae used Metavision? Well, Isagi deducted that his no-interval plays were born due to Metavision. And not only that, Sae was able to 100% of the time react to every player surrounding him, which means this naturally puts him above Niko and Reo, who have their visions limited in a certain way, while Sae seemed to be using it to the fullest. However, that's about it. Because Sae was unmotivated most of the time in that game, we did not get to see the best of his Metavision, whether be it on offense or on defense. In fact, I was more impressed by his passes and his dribbling more than his Metavision. And for that reason, I cannot place him any higher than players who have the actual feat to back their Metavision. And so, coming up at number 7 is Karasu Tabito, the latest inclusion in the Metavision realm. Now, before acquiring Metavision, Karasu was still one of the best players on the field. He still was reacting to Rin, Charles, Isagi and Kaiser, and that's specifically due to his insane perception. However, from reacting to these players, he later unlocked Metavision. And honestly, his Metavision was able to rival Isagi multiple times. In fact, that feat specifically of rivaling Isagi in the PXG game would grant him a much higher ranking. However, I will not be doing that specifically because his Metavision is just new, and even though he has some impressive feats, the quantity of those feats doesn't stack up to other players higher on this list. And simply for that reason, I am placing Karasu at the 7th spot. Coming up at number 6, we have Oliver motherfreaking Aiku. Now, to be honest, prior to the PXG game, I would have placed Aiku at number 2 no problem, as ever since he unlocked Metavision, Aiku was able to completely dominate Isagi and Kaiser, because he can see the same what they can see, and he beats them both physically. And the fact that Isagi needed another player who shares his vision in Hiori in order to beat Aiku should tell you all about his high-level Metavision. And honestly, I would have ranked Aiku's Metavision even higher than Isagi and Kaiser due to the analytical nature to his eyes. However, ever since the start of the PXG game, the Metavision users in that game seem to have attained a new level to their vision, and we simply do not know if Aiku improved his because we did not see him play, and for that reason alone, Aiku is at number 6. At number 5, however, we've got Hiori, Isagi's partner in crime. Now, to be honest, Hiori's Metavision is complete and it is of the highest level, and the only reason he is not ranked higher is because he had less showing in the PXG game compared to other players on this list, and so he is 5th on our list. At number 4 and 3, however, we've got a tie between Kaiser and Isagi. Now, saying that the definition of Metavision is Isagi and Kaiser would be an understatement, as these two were the two that introduced this broken level. First Kaiser, of course, and then Isagi by observing him and adapting to that. And ever since chapter 182, they were shown to have the same level of vision, whether on defense or offense or regardless of anything. And the only reason they beat each other is actually due to other weapons, whether be it the Kaiser Impact or Isagi's fastest piece. The point is, when it comes to Metavision and field readability, Isagi and Kaiser are evenly matched. And honestly, they would be the best in the U20 category had it not been for a certain French imp. And so, at number 2, we've got Charles Cavalier. Now think about it this way. Isagi and Kaiser are always evenly matched, and they are always insane at reading the field. However, there was always a player who outread them both, which is Charles Cavalier, and not even once did we see them read the field better than him. In fact, Isagi never won against him except for the first time, and Kaiser won once because of the Kaiser Impact Magnus. However, when it comes to a true Metavision fight, they never actually won against Charles, and for that he is deserving to be the best U20 player with Metavision, and honestly he would have been first if it wasn't for our number 1 spot, which is of course Mark Snuffy. Now, if I say Charles beat Kaiser and Isagi in Metavision fights, Snuffy actually wiped the floor with them completely, to the point it started feeling as if they don't even have Metavision against him because he always was several steps ahead of them. And as we've seen, not even the other pros can react to him. And so if it wasn't honestly obvious, Snuffy is the best Metavision user we've seen and the number 1 spot on our list. However, with that, that's the ranking for you guys. I really hope you enjoyed the video and please let me know what do you think about the list. And until next time, thank you for watching.